Hey, and welcome to another episode um of the Bracketeers. I'm starting to like that name, so it's going to stay that. Now I'm going to be breaking down the brackets for round two. I'm the only one here today, um so I don't have any guests this time to announce. So we're going to get started. Um, so yeah, it's actually. Uh, had this all set up, but it just changed on me. Uh, okay. Uh, so the first matchup we've got is Tom Hanks versus Josh Brolin, and as you can see, Josh Brolin had the uphill battle and just kind of ran into the buzz with it was Tom Hanks, and Tom Hanks just took it away as we did predict. So that's that one. Going on to face um, Tom Hanks. This battle was a really close battle, and but ultimately, Henry Fonda just didn't have what it could. Adam Driver just swooped in and did the upset, and this was a matchup that was very close, but ultimately Adam Driver took it out. So Adam Driver will be going on to face Tom Hanks, which means our first matchup is we've got Tom Hanks versus Adam Driver. Um, I think this is another easy one for Tom Hanks. I like Adam Driver, but I think with the breadth of work Tom Hanks has got, I think Tom Hanks can easily take it out. Now moving on to the next round, and we've got Jim Carrey versus Kurt Russell. This was another one that came really close, but ultimately, Jim Carrey took it out, and Kurt Russell came close, but just didn't have it. So Jim Carrey moves on, and going on up against Jim Carrey, we've got Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman just took out Sidney Poitier, which I thought was like it's one of those ones which I think a lot of people are probably more familiar with Dustin. And it's just came down to 70% of people just going for Dustin Hoffman. So Dustin Hoffman will move on, which means that Jim Carrey, and in round two we've got Jim Carrey taking on Dustin Hoffman. This should be an interesting matchup because Dustin Hoffman is a really great actor, so he's had a lot of good roles. Jim Carrey is more on the comedic side, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Right, we've got next up, we had Leonardo DiCaprio versus Ryan Reynolds. And as predicted, Jim Carrey easily took out Ryan Reynolds. Leonardo DiCaprio took out Ryan Reynolds, sorry. So, and that was just a very quick victory. And now we've got Will Smith versus Viggo Mortensen, and Will Smith took out Viggo Mortensen. This one came right down to the wire. Um, this was one that was flip flopping all the way through the week, and ultimately Will Smith just pulled it out, took out Viggo Mortensen. So, which means in round two we've got Leonardo DiCaprio versus Will Smith. Um, I think this is going to be one. I do think Leo will take it out, but once again, Will Smith is definitely is no slouch. So Will Smith is probably one that will put up a good fight as well, because I know a lot of people do like Will Smith movies, and DiCaprio is really liked as well. But um, moving on. Now we've got Robert Downey Jr. versus Chris Pratt, the MCU battle. Um, Robert Downey Jr. easily took it. Um, as expected, Chris Pratt was one that I didn't think had a chance, because his movie career has only just started, so he hasn't really had a lot of meaty roles. So going up against Robert Downey Jr., we have got Ryan Gosling, who took out The Rock, but The Rock managed to put up a good fight, but ultimately Ryan Gosling just got out and took it out, which means we've got Robert Downey Jr. versus Ryan Gosling. This one, I do think Ryan Gosling may take it. Nothing against Robert Downey Jr., but I think this will be a tough battle, and very interesting one to see how it plays out. But next up, we've got Jimmy Stewart, or James Stewart, depending on what one, versus Ben Affleck. Jimmy Stewart won. Um, Next up, we've got Alan Rickman versus Gene Kelly. This is one that was really interesting, but ultimately, there's no denying Alan Rickman's talent, and Alan Rickman just won. Which means in the next round, we've got Alan Rickman versus Jimmy Stewart. This is going to be an interesting matchup. Because Jimmy Stewart is a beloved actor of It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and stuff like that. Alan Rickman has had a lot of great roles as well, with Snape, Hans Gruber. So it's definitely a one that's going to be one to watch. Denzel Washington easily took out Charlton Heston. Um, I'm surprised it was as lopsided as it was. I thought Charlton Heston is loved, and a lot of people do like his movies, but it looks like a lot more people like Denzel. So yay, Denzel! Then we've got Harrison Ford versus Bradley Cooper. Harrison Ford takes out Bradley Cooper somewhat easily. And there's nothing much to say here. I'm not too surprised. But yeah, which means in the next round we've got Denzel Washington versus Harrison Ford. This is one I don't know how it's going to go, but I think Harrison Ford will move on and take it out. But yeah, Robin Williams versus Keanu Reeves. Robin Williams is talent really carried him through, taking out 75% of the votes. Keanu Reeves, I know a lot of people like him, and a lot of people probably and like him more, but ultimately, Ron Williams was a big juggernaut, and just Keanu didn't really have a chance at toppling him, but that was one that I did call as maybe a surprising upset there. Right, one that I found really interesting: Charlie Chaplin versus Oscar Isaacs. Um, Charlie Chaplin beats Oscar. Um, this was um, this one surprised me because I know Charlie Chaplin is really well known and a lot of people know him. I didn't think a lot of people liked his work. He's one from Silent Year, so and I thought Oscar Isaacs may have taken it out, but I think Oscar Isaacs' career sort of that not being as deep as it could at this stage. Maybe that was the reason, but yeah. So we've got Robin Williams, um, and with this one, I think I think Robin Williams will take it out. I think Charlie Chaplin, as good as he is, I think a lot of people do like Robin Williams more, but as shown, anything is possible. But Jack Nicholson versus Liam Neeson. Jack Nicholson wins easily. Um, a few people did go against him, Liam Neeson, but just wasn't enough um, to topple him. Paul Newman versus Gene Hackman. Paul Newman moves on. It was that there's 5 votes, literally 5 votes in it. So, but this was a interesting matchup, and I think Paul Newman was a lot of very well loved here. So we've got Paul Newman moving on. Sweden's got Jack Nicholson versus Paul Newman, which is going to be interesting. But ultimately, I do think Jack Nicholson will still move on. I think this is where Paul Newman's one ends. But yeah, Christian Bale versus Humphrey Bogart. Now this matchup was flip flopping all the way through. But just edging it out, Christian Bale wins by a vote. This was one of those ones which was pretty tied up going through, and one that came down to that last vote. So Christian Bale moves on. And then we've got Eddie Murphy versus James McAvoy. And James McAvoy causes the upset. Eddie Murphy was a higher seed in the bracket, but a lot of people love James McAvoy clearly, and James McAvoy causes the upset here. So James McAvoy moves on, which means we've got Christian Bale versus James McAvoy, Professor X versus Batman, so to speak. This is going to be interesting. I think James McAvoy could take out Christian Bale, and it's going to be interesting to see sort of what happens here, because these are both two titans from the comic book thing. Both have played beloved comic book characters, so And yes, the Corey team bail all the way, but I do think James McAvoy does have this. And then we've got Jake Gyllenhaal versus Michael Fassbender. Jackie G moves on. Michael Fassbender did get some votes, and but Jake Gyllenhaal got 75% of them, and he does take out Michael Fassbender, so Jake Gyllenhaal moves on. Hugh Jackman versus Alec Guinness. This was another one which could have gone either way, but ultimately, Hugh Jackman did take out Obi-Wan, and as far as like, even though a lot of people may have, this is one that Alec Guinness's work, besides Bridge of the Empire and Star Wars, maybe not that well known. I don't know, but Hugh Jackman is really well known these days, and I think a lot of people like him, so he moves on. Which means we've got Jake Gyllenhaal versus Hugh Jackman. And I think Hugh Jackman will take out Jake. But because I think Hugh Jackman's popularity is up there. I think Jake Gyllenhaal may be an interesting one, but yeah. All right. Going into our next match, which is Samuel Jackson versus Peter O'Toole. I mean, look, a lot of these classic actors are probably losing out because not a lot of people are familiar with the work, which is sad, to be honest. But Samuel Jackson takes out Peter O'Toole very easily. But it was closer than what I thought. I'll just say that. Going on against Samuel Jackson, we've got Cary versus Ian McKellen. And this was another one that came very close. Closer than what I thought it was going to be. But Ian McKellen just slightly edges out Cary Grant. So Ian McKellen will move on. Which means we've got Samuel Jackson versus Ian McKellen. This is a tough battle. I'm going to go. I do think Samuel Jackson will take it out. Because I think Ian McKellen, outside of Gandalf, outside of Magneto, I think doesn't have that breadth of roles and depth, the different roles to go further. Right, next on the list we've got Daniel Day-Lewis versus Mahershala Ali. Daniel Day-Lewis easily takes out Mahershala, and I mean, this is one that I'm pretty sure is going to go that way anyway, because Mahershala Ali doesn't really have a lot of roles out there, so yeah, there's not much more I can add to that. Gary Oldman versus Michael B. Jordan. Gary Oldman easily takes out Michael. So yeah, Gary Oldman moves on. So we've got Gary Oldman versus Daniel Day-Lewis. I think Daniel Day-Lewis will win this. As much as I hate going against Gary Oldman, but Daniel Day-Lewis does have the breadth of roles and sort of a lot of different things there tonight. But and what was probably a very easy matchup here, we've got Robert De Niro versus Seth Rogen. Robert De Niro wins easily. I mean, outside of his comedy roles, I think Seth Rogen is just one of those ones which doesn't have a lot of depth to his roles. Just seems to be plays the same character a lot of the time. So I think that's kind of why Robert De Niro wins. Robert De Niro has done everything from drama to comedy to a lot of different things. Next up, we've got Matt Damon versus Tom Hardy. Matt Damon takes out Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy put up a good fight, getting in some votes there, but Matt Damon just buzzed through and just wasn't going to let Tom win. So we've got Robert De Niro versus Matt Damon. Um, I I think Robert De Niro has this. I don't have any reason to see why Matt Damon could maybe cause the upset. And yeah, I agree with you, cool guy. Daniel DayLewis versus Gary Oldman is a finals matchup. So um, that's a very it was surprising that it did happen that way. It's just the way that this site did put the brackets. So, um, but next up we've got Al Pacino versus Chris Evans. Al Pacino wins easily. Chris Evans is one that outside of Captain America, he really doesn't have a lot of like difference in roles. He's had a few like Snowpiercer and that, but I think Al Pacino's just that more loved. So, and then going up against Al Pacino, we've got Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt took out Clint Eastwood. Um, Brad Pitt took out Clint Eastwood easily. And Clint Eastwood, I think, is one of those ones that is more known for his directing. I think a lot of people his acting on the acting side of things. It's different, but yeah. Which means we've got Al Pacino versus Brad Pitt. Two actors from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as well. But do think Al Pacino has got this, although it's probably going to come really close. We've got Marlon Brando versus Jimmy Dean or James Dean. Um, and Marlon Brando took out James Dean. I mean, James Dean only has three movies. This was one that was. I mean, I was shocked that James Dean got up here because of his three movies, but some people had him high up on their list, which is why James Dean made it in here. But Marlon Brando was just one of those ones that was just really easily. Robert Redford was Ewan McGregor, and Ewan McGregor caused the upset and takes out Robert Redford. Um, this was a tough one to call, but Ewan McGregor moves on. And yeah, like Ewan McGregor does have a lot of great roles, which means going on, we've got Marlon Brando versus Ewan McGregor. Um, and I think Marlon Brando does have this still. Ewan McGregor is great, and I do think Ewan McGregor could pass, but Marlon Brando does have a lot of great roles. There's The Godfather versus um, Obi-Wan or that. Um, but yeah, coming in next, we've got Tom Cruise versus Mark Hamill. Tom Cruise took this out easily. Mark Hamill just really didn't have a huge chance here. But Tom Cruise moves on. And then the final matchup, and facing Tom Cruise, we've got Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman took out Russell Crowe, but yeah, so Morgan Freeman takes out Russell Crowe. Morgan Freeman has got a lot of great roles, so I'm not surprised that we're going to get Morgan Freeman moving on here. Which means in round 2 we've got Tom Cruise versus Morgan Freeman. And I'm probably going to be on the Cruise train for this. I think Tom Cruise will beat Morgan Freeman, but as this tournament has shown, anything is possible. And all these actors are great. So, just to recap, the round 2 matchups, we've got as you watch me going crazy with my screen here. Our round 2 matchups that we've got Tom Hanks versus Adam Driver. I think Tom Hanks will stop Adam Driver in his tracks. Jim Carrey versus Dustin Hoffman. I think Jim Carrey has got it and will move on. Leonardo DiCaprio versus Will Smith. I think Leo will win. Robert Downey Jr. versus Ryan Gosling. I think Ryan Gosling will move on, causing the upset. Jimmy Stewart versus Alan Rickman. I think Alan Rickman will move on. Denzel Washington versus Harrison Ford. I think Harrison Ford will move on. Robin Williams versus Charlie Chaplin. I think Robin Williams will move on. Jack Nicholson versus Paul Newman. I think Jack Nicholson will move on. Christian Bale versus James McAvoy. I think McAvoy has got this. Jake Gyllenhaal versus Hugh Jackman. I think Hugh Jackman will move on. Samuel Jackson versus Ian McKellen. I think Ian McKellen will. No, I think Samuel Jackson will move on. Daniel Day-Lewis versus Gary Oldman, which, as the call guy rightfully put it, this is the finals matchup in round 2. So this is going to go down to the wire, but I think Gary Oldman's got this. Robert De Niro versus Matt Damon. I think Robert De Niro will move on. Al Pacino versus Brad Pitt. I think Al Pacino will move on. Brando versus Hugh McGregor. I think Marlon Brando will move on. And Tom Cruise versus Morgan Freeman. I think Morgan Freeman will move on. So, but yeah, so I'll put the link in the thing if you can vote on the page after this, and you can vote on who you think's going to win. And this will be the day I'll usually do it, unless something comes up, and I'll end up doing it on Mondays. But the polls will be available to vote on for a week. and I'll close them on the Sunday, whether or not I do a live video recapping the matchups or not on that Sunday before ranking. Well, so in about an hour and 15 minutes, I'll be ranking would be ranking Tom Cruise movies. There's definitely a few big ones I haven't got around to seeing. I've watched quite a few of them that I haven't seen over the last while, but yeah, I'll see you back here in a bit. And you can also and yeah, you can also find me on the usual places like Formula Random. There isn't actually any match this week, just because scheduling meant that it couldn't happen. But yeah, but until next week, we'll see you.